More damning claims tonight about the alleged sexual abuse of 3 intellectually disabled women in a care home. This week, allegations emerged the women were assaulted by a male worker there. Now, more families are speaking out about what they believe happened and what needs to change. Kirsten Vaness has more.
She was asking me whenever I saw her, is he coming back again? Is he coming back again? When is he coming back again?
We've put our daughter in there, expecting her to be looked after and cared for, and obviously she's not been getting the care that she should have really been getting.
Julie, Jane and Stephen can't show themselves, but they want to be heard.
It's ongoing for us and ongoing for them. It's ongoing, 24 hours a day. It's terrible.
Jane and her husband Stephen have formed a strong bond with Julie in the most painful of circumstances. They say their intellectually disabled daughters were allegedly sexually abused while in care.
She was quite concerned that she would be going to jail. And I said, well, why would you think you'd be going to jail? And apparently this person had been threatening her and obviously the others that nobody would believe you, and if you do report it, you'll be the one who will go to jail and you'll be locked up and they will never let you out.
There were allegations this week that 3 intellectually disabled women were sexually assaulted by a male casual staff member. Police and the Department of Human Services are investigating, but the families of the women feel they're being kept in the dark. Julie says she thinks staffing pressures led to the casual male employee being left on his own.
I just feel it's lip service half the time. I mean, I was told a couple of weeks ago that there would be no longer any male casual workers in the house. And I made a phone call yesterday to the house and found out that, the phone was answered by a casual male worker.
Jane and Stephen say when police came to interview their daughter, they weren't even told.
You'd think it'd be common courtesy for them to contact us, at least give us a chance that we could turn up at the house while the girls were being interviewed.
The Department of Human Services maintains all parents were notified for both formal and informal police interviews.
Police are investigating that allegation and the staff member who was involved in that was stood down at the time.
The 3 families involved have enlisted lawyer Ben von Einem. He says he's had difficulties even speaking to his clients at the home.
Now, to me, right then and there, that is a breach of my client's human rights because I should have unfettered access to my clients.
He says DHS seems to have some structural problems where not all messages filter through the system.
There are individual employees who are full of goodwill and good intentions, but by the very nature of the DHS and how it's structured, there are problems. Now, for example, often there's a high turnover of staff, and that's endemic through the system, which makes it very difficult for us to actually hold them to account.
Ben von Einem says he's also trying to find out whether there's a 4th alleged victim.
One is always too many, but these are very rare allegations and, we don't want staff members like that working in our system, but that's why we have police checks and all those checks and training.
Ideally, you would have a psychological profile, you would have, a very thorough one at that.
The families involved want justice, but say they realise intellectually disabled people aren't often seen as credible witnesses.
When people like us speak up and show our concerns, I think we need to be listened to and something, taken notice of, because I'm not just concerned for my daughter here. I'm concerned for all of the residents in all of the community houses all over Victoria.
The problem is not restricted to disability services. Karen Field supports people with mental health problems, and she's appalled by the level of sexual abuse in hospital wards.
This is a mental health system, under siege in some respects with the sheer volume. But I wonder whether or not we are becoming a little desensitised to these sorts of things happening in our systems.
Her understanding of the system goes well beyond her job. She has cared for a woman who was allegedly sexually assaulted by a male patient while inside a mental health ward.
She managed to get away, and from what she's told me and what some of the nursing staff have told me was that they discovered her in her shower, in her room, locked in the shower, and lying on the floor in the fetal position.
Karen says she was never officially notified and only found out the next morning when a nurse called off the record. She says the time lapse meant some of the evidence had been cleaned up.
So, whilst she made a statement and police did interview the person, they couldn't actually proceed with charges.
They need to be buzzed or swiped in by a staff member.
This is one of the state's newest mental health wards, which has sections that can be closed off to protect vulnerable patients. The state government now requires all new wards to have that design feature.
So in the event that we had a number of consumers who needed to be in a wing by themselves, say it was a number of female consumers, then they could have access to all the amenities, all the facilities.
But Karen Field would like to see the hospitals go one step further and create single-sex wards. A survey by the Victorian Women and Mental Health Network found more than 60% of female patients either witnessed or experienced some form of abuse while in a mental health ward.
I do think that the staff need to be better resourced. I do think that the staffing ratios. I do think that I know of a lot of psychiatric nurses who are working in those systems that would prefer to have men and women's corridors and be able to provide that kind of safe space for people.
I don't think it's that black and white, and I think if you ask the people who use the service, you'd probably get a mixture of replies.
The state government opened a new residence for mentally ill people in Melbourne's north this week.
What our mental health system is shifting towards is actually enabling mental health clients and patients to actually be more engaged in decisions around their treatment and care.
This facility in Broadmeadows will also have the ability to separate the sexes if needed.
If we were to say absolutely segregate and have 5 and 5, well then what happens when I've only got 2 women in the community who need a park bed and I've got lots of men? Do I not provide a service to 3 people purely because I've got a women's wing that's half empty?
Karen says the woman she cared for continues to feel threatened when she's in an environment with men.
This has not helped at all her recovery. In fact, I would strongly argue that her recovery has been thwarted massively by this experience. And what that in fact has meant has been more suicide attempts. It's meant more hospitalisations and a continual drain on the system, not to mention the human and the social costs for her.
Kirsten Vaness with that story.